Hi, today we're going to talk about lists in Adalo. Lists are a very important feature in Adalo, mostly because when you think about apps as a concept, so many apps are made up of lists. And until you start looking around, you don't actually really think about this too much. But I have a couple of examples here. Right here, you can see a screenshot of Instagram. Here, this is a person's feed. And you can see these different posts, and this is actually a list of posts or a list of images that make up their post. Right up here, we see Google Drive, and we can see a list of documents that are held in Drive. And here, this is from Target, but you can take any e-commerce website and pseudo app in that people can sign in, log in, and they have their order history and that sort of thing. Here is a list of products that someone can purchase, and this is a horizontal list, kind of a unique way to lay things out. But either way you look at it, all three of these different sources are just lists. How I like to think about lists is that they are displaying information from inside your database. So while you can create a list of items inside of Adalo that does not utilize the database, there are very special properties or features or functionality, however you like to think about it, inside Adalo that are wrapped up inside of lists. And so we're going to talk about those today. First, let's go over the database that I have set up here. Today, I'm not actually going to be using the users collection. You'll utilize this in your apps, but I'm only creating a collection called beverages. And inside this collection, I've got several properties, name, price, image, a description of the beverage, whether or not it is available. Let's say I was a little cafe and had a bunch of beverages, the ingredients here, and that's about it. I have 7 different beverages listed, and I'm going to use all of these to showcase what our list can do in Adalo. What I would like to showcase today is just the various different types of lists and what they can look like and some of the functionality that is available inside of them. Here, I have a screen that is full of different types of simple lists. If we walk through this, what's really nice is when I go ahead and create this list, so I grabbed it from our component section, dragged it over onto our screen, and then I went ahead and selected that this is a list of beverages from our database. I wanted to filter this list to say whether or not the beverage is actually available in my cafe. And then I went ahead and I added some magic text, which if you're not familiar with magic text, you can go ahead and check out that video. For the title and the subtitle. And then I went ahead and updated the icon here, the color. I also chose to change the color of my divider here, and that's how I got what this looks like right now. Right here, this is your simple list if you just drag it out from our component area and don't make any changes to that. So when we go ahead and view the app, I'll show you exactly what that's going to look like. Here is a simple list. I sorted this by the beverage price, so you're gonna see that. And I also made it that the maximum number of items that can show inside this list is 3. The way that you control that is over here, you can see my sorting. I sorted by one of the properties in my database, low to high price. And then I also chose a maximum number of list items to be 3 right here. I turned on our list search, and so we're able to have our users search for an item that's in the list here. What's really nice is that all of this is created just with that simple list component, and it's not required that you create a custom list which uses several different components and combines them together in a list functionality. We'll look at that here shortly, but for right now, let's go ahead and look at what these simple lists look like at the user's end. All right, so as you can see, right here is my simple list that is filtered. So I filtered this by whether or not the item was available, and that was a true and false property. If you need to learn a little bit more about the data types in Adalo, we've got a video for that as well. Here you can see this list has no modifications. This shows you basically that this is everything that's available to show in this list from our database. So when we filter it, you can see that this has less options. And then when you see over here, we sorted the list from low to high, and we also filtered the list to only show 3 results total. We removed the picture over here, which was in the left section, and that was just a simple toggle. And now you've got 3 very distinct looking lists with 3 very distinct functionality applied to it. And you get a lot of different look and feel to your list. And so even though it's called Simple List, it is very flexible, which is nice. All right, let's head back. Next, we're going to look at our card list. So the card list can be found here, and the card list scrolls up and down on an app. And so again, you can see that when I click on this, I get the same functionality as a simple list where I need to choose which collection I'm trying to display data from. I have the option to choose filters, some sorting, the maximum number of items, but then there are some additional features here for this list. First, I can choose the number of columns that I want to show in my card list, and I can show a different type of layout. So here I chose grid, and on this next example over here, I actually chose a masonry layout, and I sorted things from high to low. So in fact, I'm going to go ahead and add that information right here, just so I remember in my end app what this list is actually showing. Down here, you can see the various sections that you can toggle on and off, and this just changes the way that the list is going to look very quickly. And again, turn it on, turn it off, just depending on what you would like to use. All right, if we go ahead and look at what the end user is going to see in all of these various cases, you can see that there are 3 different card lists here, and they're each displaying something differently based on the different features that we decided to turn on, turn off, and change the layout of everything. Here you can see we chose the grid list. The grid list means that each one of your cards is going to be the same exact height, and so it appears in a very nice grid. If you select masonry list, like the second list here, you can see that each one of our items, if there is a different size of information available, so in this case there is more text than this one, then the card is going to expand to fit the content, and it's going to kind of push and make this look a little bit uneven. This is very reminiscent of something that you would see on the platform Pinterest. So it's very common, but it's up to you to decide how you actually want your app to look. Next, over here, we chose the image placement to be off to the right, and so that just kind of changed the whole entire layout of this. We're using our buttons here in a little bit of a different way than they're typically used to display the price. We added an icon here, and again, this is all just a toggle, and you can toggle this off to get a completely different look. Next up, we have the image list. The image list has, again, the same exact layout as all of the other lists that we have. You can change this up to 4 columns, and that's probably the most unique aspect of this list that I've not covered in other lists. There are a couple of different changes that I made between these 2 lists that showcase how they're different. So for example, this has 2 columns. It does have a filter on it, so you can see how that looks different over here. I changed the placement of the text to be above the title and changed the overlay to be a solid color instead of a gradient. If we go ahead and view these 2 different lists that I created here, you can see how they look a little bit differently. This tall portrait image here as opposed to a square image here. This is filtered to be not available, and according to our database, we only had 2 items that were not available at this cafe. So they show here. Image lists look really nice. They're very simple, very easy to use. It's pretty limited in the things that you're able to do with it, but what you can do with it does look very nice once all is said and done. All right, let's move on to our horizontal list. One of the important things to know about the horizontal list is this bounding box here. This green bounding box is going to be important for how wide your list displays when it's in your end app. So if you have the bounding box end right here, then when we actually go to look at our live app, it's going to cut off this image in half. So one of my recommendations is to, at the very least, pull your bounding box to be how wide you would want your list to show up, even if in the interface it doesn't show up here. With a horizontal list, even though it is scrolling left to right, the same functionality and options to customize your list are available here. So you can filter your list, you can add some sorting, maximum number of items. Here, because this is the avatar list, we can choose which image we want directly from the database. We can change our spacing here. And then we can go ahead and choose some image options. So we can change the size of our image. We can change the rounding of our image. We can choose how we're cropping the image. We can add a background and border. I've not done that here. We can choose where we would like our text, top or bottom. And then we can choose our list empty state, which I haven't actually gone over list empty states yet, but a list empty state means that if there is no data in the database to show, we would be able to say, hey, there's no information here. Here's what you need to do instead. This is really important when you have user-generated content, and what I mean by that is a form or some place where users are going to go ahead and create data, and that data is going to be displayed in a list. It is best practice from a UX perspective to show an empty state, and so we've added empty states to our list so that it's convenient for you to showcase that in your app when there's nothing in the database. Another example of our avatar list is down here. I just went ahead and took away the text, made our images round, made them small. And I'm going to keep this image here in half so that you can see when we look at the end app exactly how it's going to actually work and look in your app. Great. Here's what our horizontal list looks like. If you remember, this looks pretty similar to the example that I showed you from Target. And down here on this avatar list, you can see, again, because that bounding box cut off the image part way, that's what it's showing now. And again, now this list goes and moves left to right. Our last two horizontal lists that we're going to talk about today is our horizontal card list and our chip list. There are various reasons why you might use each one of these lists. This looks a little bit like our Facebook stories or maybe like YouTube shorts. This is very common look in social media apps, it seems like, but there's definitely plenty of areas where you might want to use this in your own app. You have lots of options down here to toggle on and off or to change kind of what the look is going to feel like if you wanted to do a top overlay instead of the bottom one. But we're going to go ahead and keep this at the bottom here. And then with our chip list, there's not a lot that you can control here because obviously a chip is pretty small. This is used a lot when you're talking about maybe categories of something or you want to offer people the option to filter. You can use this chip list and that looks really good. Again, the same thing applies as the avatar list, that if this is cut off halfway, you're only going to be able to see half of the option. So make sure to resize your bounding box to be exactly how far across you want your horizontal list to appear. If we look inside of our app now, here's kind of what it's going to look like based on what I had set inside the builder. But you can see this goes across like this. Very nice horizontal list. And similarly, this is this horizontal list. All right, last but not least, we're going to talk about custom list. Custom list, you can only make vertical lists, meaning they're going to scroll from top to bottom. It's not possible at this time to create a custom list that scrolls right to left. There are two ways to create a custom list. You can either select the component inside our component area. So you can go to list, custom list, drag that out onto the screen like this. And then you can start adding components inside here. So now you see enter text shows in the whole entire list. Personally, and quite frankly, most people at Adalo just create custom lists by designing their list in the screen. That's what I did in this area right here to make this a list. So I went ahead and I started with an image. I added a rectangle here, pulled it across the whole way. I did add another rectangle behind, like this. I went to my screens and I chose that this rectangle actually needs to be below the image. I rounded these corners. All right, so you can kind of see how this is coming together over here. Obviously, I added a button, I added an icon, some text, etc. But in order to create a custom list, I just highlight all of the components that I have here, and then you get this option to make a list. Now I have a custom list, and as I continued building this out, I decided to add that I was going to have custom column counts, which is unique to our custom list. And I said that on our desktop, I'm going to have 2 columns, and now you start to see, oh, this is exactly what that looks like. So because I already set this up in a different example, I'm going to go ahead and delete this here. But now you understand that in order to create a custom list, you can just add several components on top of each other, select them all, and then choose to make that a list. Let's go ahead and add this back into the center of our app. Great. Another thing to know about custom lists is they automatically get assigned the masonry layout. If you remember from before, the masonry layout is kind of like the Pinterest-inspired list where your card is the size of the content within it, and so it can kind of look like brickwork coming together. If you would like to change to have the masonry layout turned off for your app, you can come down here into your edit styles of your custom list and select masonry layout turned off, and then your list will have the grid layout. Here is what my custom list looks like that I created and you just saw inside the builder. As you can see, this is not a list that I could have created with our out-of-the-box list components. However, custom list makes everything as customizable as you could possibly want, and it looks really nice once you're finished. All right, let's go into depth a little bit more about different functionality inside your list. So I touched a little bit about filters before, and sometimes when you're thinking about filters, you're going to need to select this drop-down area under our filter. And if you're filtering something by the logged in user, or you have a list of users, there are several other options or pathways that are going to automatically show up here. However, that's not the only way to filter. You can add a custom filter here, and what you do is you're going to start selecting properties from inside your collection. And so if you remember from the beginning of this video, these are the properties inside my beverages collection, and I can decide that I want to filter by the price is greater than or equal to $4. Now this is saying that I want to show the beverages whose price is higher than $4, and anything that's below $4 do not show. In our custom filters, we also have and or operators. And so in here, this custom filter could say price is greater than or equal to $4 and the beverage is actually available. The is available property says is true. If I click add custom filter down here, it comes up with the or operator. And now it's saying, hey, I want to show anything that the price is greater than or equal to $4 and is available. So these two things must be true. Or, and then I can go ahead and choose how I would like to filter it. Filters can be pretty powerful here, just depending on how you put them together inside your app. But we'll talk about that in a later video. And so all you really needed to know that lists have the options to do custom filters. Next, there's sorting. Sorting pulls all of the properties from your database collection that your list is from, and then it gives you some predetermined options. So oldest to newest on things like dates is available. You can do the false first or true first, low to high, high to low, A to Z, Z to A. So all of the different sorting options are available to you based on each property and their property type. All right, a couple of extra notes about lists. Lists are typically how you start an app. Let's think about this e-commerce app that I showed you at the beginning. We've got this image from Target, and if you've ever done some e-commerce shopping before, you know that if I go ahead and I click on this item, it's going to open up a screen that has all of the details about this particular item. In your app, it's likely that you're going to see the same user experience pattern. You're going to display a list of things, and then once somebody selects the item from your list, they're going to be taken to what we call a detail screen. The reason that lists are important is because they pull information from the database, and then you can use that information from the database onto a detail screen without creating a detail screen for this pop, this tea, this pop, this drink, and so on and so forth. Instead, you're able to create your list screen and then create one detail screen, and again, that information is going to be dynamic from the database. If this is a confusing concept for you, I definitely recommend checking out our magic text video, and that's going to explain in a lot more detail what we mean by list, a detail screen, and utilizing magic text to pull information dynamically from your database. The most important part to understand from this video is that lists are a way to move data from one screen to the next screen. Another thing to remember from our magic text video, the idea of a current record or item. Current is applied to a list item. So if this is a list of users, you can say current user. If this is a list of beverages, this is my current beverage, this one beverage. And if I clicked over here, this is my current beverage. Again, if this is confusing, definitely check out our magic text video because it explains it in so much more detail. Another thing to know about lists is inside our builder, you're only seeing a small fraction of the list items. In fact, if I had a list of beverages that had over 250 beverages and I pulled in this simple list, it still is only going to show 3 beverages inside of the builder here. If you remember any of the examples that I gave in this video, you saw in the end app example that there were several more items from the database that were displayed. So when you're thinking about your list inside of your builder app, the app where you're doing your building, it's okay to only see a couple of list items. To show you an example of this, we can come here to my custom list, and if it looks like this, here is how many items I get in my end app. If in the builder, my custom list looks like this, and I only show 2 items, my list actually looks the same, because in the builder, what we're showing is that this is a placeholder for our list, and it's populated from the database and the settings that we select. It is not based on the size that the list occupies inside your app. Oftentimes, I see makers struggling with this concept. They believe that they need to create their list space inside the builder to be as large as what their list is going to occupy in the end app. This is not true. Your list is going to dynamically grow based on the information in your database. One other thing to note is that you can put a list inside of a list. This is a confusing concept to grasp at the beginning, and we'll cover it in a later video, but you're going to want more than one collection in order to do that. The biggest takeaway here is that lists are extremely flexible, and sometimes you need more than one list inside of a list in order to display the information from your database correctly. All right, this is all I have on lists today. Thank you for joining me. And again, check out those videos I mentioned here in order to learn a little bit more about lists, magic text, and pulling data from your database, as well as data types. There's a lot covered in here and a lot of foundational knowledge you'll need to have in order to properly utilize lists in your app. So definitely check those out. Thank you.